There are certain moments in life that seem ordinary on the surface, yet carry a weight far greater than anyone realizes. This is one of those moments. Before you move any further into these words, allow yourself to become still for a second. Not because this is simply another message appearing on your screen, but because something inside you has already recognized it before your mind had the chance to explain why. The fact that you are here now is not as meaningless as it may appear. Beneath logic, beneath routine, beneath the endless distractions that compete for your attention every day, there is a deeper current moving through your life. That current has brought you to this exact point. And if you feel even the slightest sense of recognition while hearing these words, then you need to understand that June 9th is far more than a date. It is a threshold. It's a point along your journey that has been quietly approaching for longer than you realize, long before you became aware of it, long before you understood why certain experiences unfolded the way they did. The path leading toward this moment was already being formed. Every disappointment that left you questioning your future, every delay that seemed unnecessary, every evening spent wondering whether life would ever begin moving again, was serving a purpose that could not be seen at the time. What once felt like random struggle was actually preparation taking place behind the scenes. And now the picture is beginning to sharpen. Many people spend years searching for answers, but what they are truly searching for is something deeper. They are searching for alignment. They are searching for a way to bring their inner world into harmony with the life they know they were meant to live. If that sounds familiar, then trust the instinct that guided you here. The same force that has carried you through every uncertain season is still guiding you now. It has not abandoned you. It has not lost sight of you. And if you already feel something stirring inside, a quiet awakening, a sense that these words are touching a place within you that has been waiting to be acknowledged, do not dismiss it. Moments like these become anchors. They become markers that separate one chapter of life from another. One day you may look back and realize that this was the point where everything began to change. There was a period, perhaps much earlier than you realize, when you sensed that you viewed the world differently from the people around you. Even when you lacked the language to describe it, you felt it. You noticed details others ignored. You experienced emotions more deeply than you could explain. You questioned assumptions that everyone else accepted without hesitation. There was a depth within you that never quite fit comfortably into ordinary expectations. As a child, that awareness often appeared as a feeling, a quiet certainty that your journey would not unfold in the same predictable way as everyone else's. Yet no one handed you a guide explaining what that awareness meant. No one taught you how to navigate a life shaped by intuition, reflection, and inner knowing. So like many people, you began adjusting yourself to fit the world around you. You learned to silence certain instincts. You learned to ignore parts of your truth. You attempted to follow schedules, expectations, and definitions of success that never fully connected with who you truly were. You softened your uniqueness in exchange for acceptance. You reduced your brightness so that others would feel comfortable. You convinced yourself that belonging required becoming less of yourself. But no matter how hard you tried, life kept redirecting you. Again and again, you found yourself pulled towards solitude. Again and again, you were guided into periods of reflection and transformation. Again and again, circumstances forced you to grow beyond the person you had been. There was a reason for that. You were never designed to disappear into the crowd. You were never intended to become another copy of what already existed. Something within you carried a different purpose from the beginning, and June 9th becomes a point where that reality becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. The signs will no longer remain hidden beneath the surface. They will begin emerging within your experience and within the circumstances surrounding your life. Deep down, you have been waiting for movement. You have been waiting for evidence that all of your effort has not been wasted. You have been waiting for the moment when confusion finally gives way to understanding. There were times when the waiting felt exhausting, Times when it appeared that everyone else was progressing while you remained trapped in place. Times when you wondered whether life had overlooked you entirely. You questioned whether your persistence mattered. You questioned whether change would ever arrive. Yet the perspective you carried during those moments was incomplete. The delays were never punishment. The obstacles were never proof that you were on the wrong path. Every setback was shaping capacities within you that could not have been developed any other way. What looked like stagnation was often refinement. What felt like rejection was frequently redirection. What appeared to be silence was often preparation. Because the opportunities meant for your future could not fully enter your life until you became the version of yourself capable of sustaining them. That is why the pace slowed. That is why distractions were removed. That is why you experienced seasons of isolation. Life was not taking something from you. It was building something within you. And now the timing that once remained hidden is beginning to reveal itself. June 9th represents a transition between preparation and recognition. It represents the moment when lessons accumulated in darkness begin producing visible results. Throughout your journey, there have been struggles that no one fully understood, battles that unfolded internally while the outside world saw only fragments of the story. There were days when your mind felt burdened by uncertainty, days when your energy seemed depleted for reasons you could not explain, days when your spirit felt stretched beyond what seemed fair. To others, it may have looked like ordinary stress or exhaustion, yet you sensed there was something deeper occurring beneath the surface. When a person carries a meaningful purpose, resistance often arises with greater intensity, not because they are being targeted, but because growth requires pressure. Those challenges were measuring your willingness to continue moving forward when certainty was absent. More than once you wanted to stop. More than once you considered giving up. More than once you wondered whether the struggle was worth it. Yet despite everything, you remained. You continued. You took another step, and then another. Because of that, the nature of the battle is now changing. June 9th is not merely a milestone, it is confirmation. It is evidence that the energy surrounding your life is beginning to shift direction. The challenges may not disappear entirely, but their purpose changes. For the first time in a long time, momentum begins moving with you, rather than against you. Every destined life eventually reaches a turning point, where waiting becomes movement, and uncertainty becomes understanding. For you, that turning point is connected to June 9th. The shift may arrive quietly. It may not announce itself through dramatic events or overwhelming displays, yet its presence will be unmistakable. Circumstances that once felt blocked may begin opening naturally. Conversations may become easier. Opportunities may appear where resistance once existed. Most surprising of all, the transformation may first reveal itself through an inner certainty rather than an external event. A calm recognition, a feeling that something has finally settled into place. That is often how genuine confirmation arrives. It does not need to demand attention. It carries its own undeniable certainty. Many people around you may never notice the difference. They may continue living exactly as before. That is because this transition is not meant to be recognized by everyone. It is meant to be recognized by those who have endured the journey required to perceive it, those who have been tested, those who have grown through hardship, those who continued believing during periods when no visible proof existed, those who wrestled with doubt and still chose to continue. If your intuition feels stronger now, if your awareness feels sharper, if something within you keeps insisting that this moment matters, there is a reason. This message is finding the people prepared to hear it. Eventually, you will look back across every heartbreak, every disappointment, every betrayal, every unanswered question, and recognize that none of it was working against you. Each experience was positioning you. Each challenge was developing the strength required for what comes next. Because what begins unfolding after June 9th demands resilience that can only be forged through pressure, wisdom that can only emerge through confusion, and awareness that can only be born through transformation. And now, after everything you have endured, you stand at that threshold. You are prepared. Not because the road was easy, but because every attempt to break you became part of the process that strengthened you. And before the outer world begins reflecting that change, something will awaken within you first. Not loudly, not dramatically, but unmistakably. A quiet activation. A deep inner signal. A feeling settling into your chest that tells you, without needing explanation, that the next chapter has already begun. One of the first signs that this transformation is truly underway may arrive so quietly that you almost overlook it. There may be no dramatic announcement, no sudden event that forces your attention. Instead, you could find yourself waking up one morning with an unfamiliar sense of peace. The heaviness that once occupied your thoughts may seem strangely absent. The mental fog that followed you for so long may begin to lift without explanation. And although you may not immediately understand why, something inside you will recognize that a change has already begun. This is how the deepest shifts often arrive, not through chaos, but through a subtle recalibration of your inner world. A calmness settles where confusion once lived. Readiness replaces uncertainty. The internal resistance that once kept you questioning every step starts to dissolve. In that moment, whether you fully realize it or not, you are receiving a signal, not from outside of you, but from within. It is the indication that your energy is reorganizing itself. It is the invisible movement that always occurs before visible transformation can take shape. The outer world cannot fully change until the inner world becomes capable of sustaining that change. That is why this feeling matters. And when it arrives, do not dismiss it as wishful thinking. Do not convince yourself that it is insignificant. It is evidence that the process has already moved beyond preparation and into activation, even if your circumstances have not yet caught up with what is happening internally. Perhaps you have already noticed another change as well. The inner voice you once struggled to hear is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. There was a time when your intuition felt distant, almost buried beneath noise, fear, responsibility, and endless opinions from other people. Yet now it feels different. What once sounded like a faint suggestion has become clearer, stronger, and far more persistent. It no longer waits quietly in the background. It steps forward. It guides. It redirects your attention. It urges you to pay attention to things you might have previously overlooked. This is not imagination, nor is it coincidence. This is what naturally occurs when genuine alignment begins taking hold. Your intuition is not suddenly becoming more powerful. Rather, you are becoming more available to receive what it has been trying to communicate all along. For years, distractions interrupted that connection. Fear distorted it. External expectations drowned it out. But now the interference is weakening. You are beginning to notice patterns that once escaped your awareness. You are becoming more sensitive to the energy behind people's words, rather than simply hearing the words themselves. You are recognizing opportunities, relationships, and situations with a level of discernment that was previously unavailable to you. Most importantly, you are starting to identify what belongs on your path and what does not, without requiring permission or validation from anyone else. This growing awareness is not accidental. It is preparation. Because what unfolds after June 9th will require a deeper level of trust in yourself than ever before. The guidance you seek externally will increasingly emerge from within. That inner knowing will become a compass when choices appear. It will become protection when confusion arises. It will become direction when the road ahead seems uncertain. And the more you honor it, the stronger it becomes. Along this journey, There were people who failed to understand you. Some questioned your choices openly. Others expressed their doubt through silence, distance, or subtle criticism. Whether spoken directly or communicated through energy alone, you felt their disbelief. You sensed the hesitation behind their encouragement. You recognized when people could not fully see the vision you carried within yourself. For a period of time, their uncertainty may have affected you more than you wanted to admit. It may have caused you to second-guess your instincts. It may have encouraged you to hide certain parts of yourself. It may have convinced you to delay decisions that your heart already knew were necessary. Yet something remarkable begins to happen when a person's alignment strengthens. The opinions of others gradually lose their ability to define reality. As your energy shifts, the way people respond to you begins shifting as well. Some individuals who once questioned you may become unexpectedly supportive. Others may grow curious about changes they cannot explain. Some may finally begin seeing qualities in you that were always present but previously overlooked. At the same time, there will be those who become uncomfortable, not because you have done anything wrong, but because your growth highlights differences they are not ready to confront within themselves. As a result, certain relationships may naturally drift apart. This process does not require force. It does not require conflict. It simply unfolds as a consequence of alignment. When you begin fully occupying your own energy, everything around you adjusts accordingly. The people capable of growing alongside you remain. The people unable to resonate with your direction gradually move elsewhere. This is neither punishment nor rejection. It is balance restoring itself. Looking back, there were losses that once seemed impossible to understand. Relationships ended. Opportunities disappeared. Certain roads closed without warning. At the time, those experiences felt painful. They felt unfair. They felt as though something valuable had been taken from you. Yet perspective changes when awareness expands. What once appeared to be loss often reveals itself as completion. Those experiences served their purpose. They taught the lessons they were meant to teach. They contributed to your growth. They shaped your awareness. And once their role was complete, they could no longer remain. Not because they lacked value, but because your future required different conditions. What comes next demands space that could not exist while outdated attachments continued occupying it. It requires clarity that cannot emerge while conflicting energies compete for attention. It requires alignment that cannot coexist with circumstances that belong to an earlier version of your journey. Viewed through this lens, what you called loss was actually preparation. It was life clearing the path ahead. It was making room for opportunities, relationships, and experiences that do not require you to abandon yourself in order to participate in them. As this transformation gains momentum, you may encounter a strange feeling. Parts of yourself that once seemed permanent begin changing. Familiar reactions lose their intensity. Situations that once triggered strong emotional responses no longer affect you in the same way. Old patterns begin dissolving. The habits that once defined your identity may suddenly feel foreign. This can feel unsettling at first because growth often places one foot in the familiar and one foot in the unknown. You may feel as though you are simultaneously becoming someone new while saying goodbye to someone old. Yet this discomfort is not evidence that something is wrong. It is evidence that evolution is taking place. Every meaningful transformation requires a period where certainty is replaced by discovery. You are learning how to inhabit a new level of awareness. You are learning how to navigate life from a different perspective. And although uncertainty may occasionally accompany that process, it is not a sign to retreat. It is a sign that you are moving forward. As this energetic shift continues unfolding, confirmations begin appearing around you. Initially, they may seem small, a repeating number appearing repeatedly throughout your day, an unexpected opportunity arriving at the perfect moment. a conversation containing exactly the message you needed to hear, an encounter that feels strangely timed, a coincidence that feels too precise to dismiss. Individually, each experience may appear insignificant. Together, they form a pattern. These moments are reminders that your path is not unfolding randomly. They are signals reinforcing that you are moving in harmony with something larger than your immediate perception. What makes these confirmations powerful is that they are uniquely tailored to your journey. They are not intended for everyone. They are intended for you. The more attention you give them, the more visible they become. They reassure you during moments of doubt. They remind you that unseen support exists. They strengthen trust in the process. And perhaps most importantly, they remind you that you are not navigating this chapter alone. What is taking place within you is not about escaping your current life. It is not about abandoning who you are or becoming an entirely different person overnight. It is about operating from a higher level of awareness while remaining present within the same world. The streets may look the same. Your schedule may appear unchanged. Your environment may remain familiar. Yet your perception is evolving. The way you interpret experiences is changing. The energy you bring into situations is changing. And as that internal transformation stabilizes, the external world gradually begins reflecting it back to you. This is the true nature of transformation. It starts invisibly. It develops internally. Then it extends outward until every area of life begins reorganizing around the new reality you have become capable of holding. What you are entering now is not a temporary phase. It is a deeper level of existence that has been calling you for a very long time. Eventually, a moment arrives in every awakened journey when confusion loses its grip and direction becomes unmistakable. The feeling of moving endlessly in circles begins disappearing. The scattered pieces of your life start connecting. Questions that once seemed impossible to answer begin resolving themselves. Instead of constantly forcing solutions, you begin experiencing a natural sense of movement. Decisions feel clearer. Opportunities become easier to recognize. A quiet certainty starts replacing endless overthinking. This is the point where your path begins locking into place. Not because challenges vanish, but because clarity arrives. And clarity possesses a power that comfort never can. It removes hesitation. It dissolves unnecessary fear. It allows action to emerge naturally from conviction rather than uncertainty. As this process deepens even further, an unexpected realization begins to emerge. The person you used to be starts feeling increasingly distant. Not forgotten, but distant. Certain conversations lose their appeal. Certain worries lose their importance. Certain identities no longer fit. You may look back at earlier versions of yourself and feel as though you're observing someone you once knew rather than someone you currently are. This is not confusion. This is not disconnection. This is the natural result of growth. It is the evidence that you are no longer operating from the same consciousness that once shaped your decisions. You're expanding beyond old limitations. You are stepping beyond old definitions. And that realization is preparing you for the next stage of the journey that is about to reveal itself. What many people fail to realize about transformation is that it rarely begins with a visible change. Long before circumstances shift, before opportunities arrive, before the world starts responding differently to you, something much more important takes place beneath the surface. An old identity begins to loosen its grip. The version of you that was created during earlier seasons of survival, uncertainty, and growth slowly starts losing its authority. This process can feel strange, because nothing external may appear different at first. You may still wake up in the same place, follow similar routines, and move through familiar environments. Yet internally, something has changed forever. The beliefs that once defined you no longer feel completely true. The fears that once controlled your decisions begin losing their influence. The limitations that once felt permanent start revealing themselves as temporary structures rather than absolute realities. This is why there can be a feeling of leaving something behind, even when nothing physical has been left behind at all. What you're actually releasing is an outdated version of yourself. And once you truly recognize that shift, there is no returning to who you used to be. Awareness does not move backward. Once you see beyond an old pattern, it becomes impossible to fully inhabit it again. As this inner transformation deepens, the world around you begins responding in ways that may seem almost mysterious. Places that once felt difficult to navigate suddenly become easier. Situations that appeared blocked begin moving forward with unexpected ease. Certain conversations become lighter. Certain struggles lose their intensity. At the same time, you may notice that some environments no longer feel compatible with who you are becoming. Spaces that once felt familiar may suddenly feel restrictive. Meanwhile, other opportunities, relationships, and experiences seem to welcome you naturally without effort or struggle. This is not random chance. This is resonance unfolding in real time. The energy you carry influences the experiences you attract. As your internal state changes, the way you interact with reality changes as well. You are no longer operating from the same emotional frequency, the same expectations, or the same unconscious patterns. Because of that, reality begins reorganizing itself around your new state of awareness. This is why certain doors open with surprising ease, while others remain closed despite your efforts. It is not about worthiness. It is not about punishment. It is not about rejection. It is about compatibility. Everything that aligns with your evolution begins moving closer. Everything that no longer supports it gradually moves away. Yet before any significant breakthrough fully arrives, there is often a final challenge. Almost every meaningful transformation includes a moment where uncertainty attempts to return one last time. A moment where old fears revisit your mind. A moment where doubt whispers familiar stories. A moment where the comfort of the past tries convincing you to remain exactly where you are. When this happens, many people mistakenly believe they are moving backward. In reality, the opposite is true. This final challenge often appears because you are standing closer to your breakthrough than ever before. Growth is not simply about reaching a new level. It is about demonstrating that you can remain there. It is about proving to yourself that your awareness is stronger than your conditioning. This final test may appear as a frustrating delay. It may come through a situation that challenges your patience. It may emerge through a circumstance that triggers an old emotional response. Or it may arrive through an opportunity that requires complete trust in yourself despite having no external reassurance. And in that moment, you will face a choice. You can react from the identity you are leaving behind, or you can respond from the person you have become. That choice matters more than you realize. Because when you choose clarity over fear, confidence over self-doubt, and awareness over old conditioning, the breakthrough changes its nature. It stops being something you are hoping for and becomes something you have actively stepped into. Many people imagine transformation as a dramatic event. They expect an obvious sign, an overwhelming shift, or a sudden disruption that changes everything overnight. Yet what unfolds after June 9th may be far more subtle than that. Instead of chaos, there may be calm. Instead of upheaval, there may be certainty. Instead of dramatic external events, there may be an internal realization so profound that it changes the way you see everything. You may notice your thinking becoming clearer. You may observe that situations which once triggered anxiety now receive a more balanced response. You may discover that your perspective feels both unfamiliar and strangely natural at the same time. Then, little by little, your outer world begins reflecting that inner change. Opportunities appear organically. Relationships develop without forcing them. Complications simplify themselves. Circumstances that once seemed impossible begin revealing solutions. This is often how genuine transformation manifests. It does not always arrive with intensity. Sometimes it arrives through alignment. Sometimes it arrives through clarity. Sometimes it arrives through the unmistakable feeling that life has finally begun moving in the direction it was always trying to take you. Think about how much energy you once spent chasing recognition, chasing opportunities, chasing understanding, chasing validation, chasing the feeling that you were finally enough. There may have been periods when it seemed as though every step forward required exhausting effort, as if nothing arrived naturally, as if you had to constantly prove your value just to gain access to the next stage of your journey. But as your alignment strengthens, this dynamic begins changing. You start noticing a different flow. Opportunities begin appearing without relentless pursuit. The right people begin finding their way into your life. Conversations emerge at exactly the right moment. Doors open without requiring force. This is not luck. It is not coincidence. It is the result of becoming energetically aligned with your path. When something truly belongs to your journey, you no longer need to chase it endlessly. Instead, you learn to meet it with presence, awareness, and readiness. This realization transforms everything. You stop operating from desperation. You stop making decisions from fear. You stop believing that you must constantly struggle to receive what is already moving toward you. Instead, you move with confidence, trusting that what genuinely belongs in your life cannot bypass you. Beneath the surface, there has always been another version of you, waiting patiently for the right moment to emerge. Perhaps you have encountered this version during moments of courage, moments of inspiration, or moments when you briefly forgot your limitations. This version of you knows your value. This version trusts the journey. This version does not require constant reassurance. It acts from certainty rather than fear. Yet throughout different stages of life, conditioning, disappointment, expectations, and doubt kept that version partially hidden. It existed beneath the surface, waiting for the right season to arrive. As your awareness expands, that deeper self begins stepping forward. You start making different decisions. You begin carrying yourself differently. You stop apologizing for your existence. You stop minimizing your gifts to make other people comfortable. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into environments that were never designed for your growth. Instead, you expand naturally into the person you were always meant to become. And once that process gains momentum, everything changes. Not only around you, but within you as well. You may have imagined that confirmation would arrive as a dramatic sign that instantly removes all uncertainty. Perhaps you expected a direct answer, an unmistakable message, or an event so obvious that it leaves no room for doubt. Yet real confirmation often arrives differently. It enters quietly, carrying extraordinary significance beneath an ordinary appearance. It may arrive through a conversation that unexpectedly answers a question you have carried for months. It may appear through an opportunity that arrives at precisely the moment you need it. It may emerge as a realization so powerful that it instantly rearranges your understanding of your own journey. Whatever form it takes, one thing will be undeniable. You will recognize it immediately. There will be no need for endless analysis, no need to seek approval from others, no need to convince yourself of its meaning. It will resonate with a depth that feels familiar, as though you're finally remembering something your soul already knew. That is how authentic confirmation works. It does not force itself upon you. It simply arrives and is recognized. And when that recognition occurs, you will understand that every challenge, every delay, every lesson that came before it served a purpose. As your awareness continues expanding, another shift becomes increasingly visible. Certain people begin drifting away. Sometimes this happens peacefully. Sometimes it happens unexpectedly. Sometimes there is no explanation at all. At first, This can feel unsettling because those connections once felt significant. They represented familiarity. They represented history. They represented comfort. Yet not everyone who participates in your preparation is meant to accompany you into your next chapter. Some individuals were teachers. Some were mirrors. Some were catalysts for growth. Their role was never to remain forever. As your energy changes, the connections that no longer resonate with your direction naturally begin dissolving. This is not abandonment. This is not failure. This is alignment restoring balance. Space must be created for what is coming next. Your future requires clarity. It requires focus. It requires an environment capable of supporting the person you are becoming, rather than reinforcing the person you used to be. There may also be something from your past that you believed was gone forever, an opportunity that slipped away, a dream that seemed unfinished, a path that appeared permanently closed. Over time, you may have convinced yourself that it simply was not meant to be. Yet one of the deepest truths you're about to discover is that what genuinely belongs to your path is never truly lost. It may disappear temporarily. It may change shape. It may take a different route than you expected. It may arrive much later than you originally hoped. But it does not vanish. As you enter this new phase, something connected to your past may reappear in a completely new form. Not as a repetition of what once existed, but as an opportunity aligned with who you have become. The difference is that this time you are prepared. You possess the awareness that was previously missing. You carry the clarity that once seemed unreachable. You have developed the strength that could only be earned through experience. Because of that, what once felt distant and impossible may suddenly feel natural, as though it was never truly gone at all, but simply waiting for the precise moment when you were finally ready to receive it fully. And that realization will prepare you for the next revelation that is beginning to unfold.